When we talk to someone else on the phone, there is a process of receiving and transmitting our voice to the other side. Now, here's a fun fact. Our phones do not send our voice entirely. Instead, to guarantee the speed of data transmission, it eliminates the higher frequencies in our voice. The phone's processor is utilizing the Fourier series to break down our voice into separate frequencies and truncate the unnecessary part. In this video, you will find the detailed concepts of the Fourier series and some examples for better understanding. And we will not forget the display of the infamous Fourier epicycles. Before exploring the Fourier series, let us use some intuition. The overarching idea is breaking down any function in terms of simpler basis functions. Among them, the simplest is the polynomial function. If our choice is the polynomial function, the best tool is the Taylor series. As a toy example, let us try approximating the sine function. To simplify, take a equals 0. You can see that when the exponent gets bigger, the approximation gets more accurate. The choice of basis function is completely in our hands. Fourier series happens when we use a natural function instead of polynomials. Now, the terms for our approximation become sine and cosine. In case you wonder why, the special property is that trigonometric function has a frequency. This enables us to analyze a function from its frequency. Why does it need so many terms of sine and cosine? To explain this, I'd like to draw an analogy with a vector space. Consider a cube with 3 arrows at one of its corners. The red arrow represents the x-axis, the green arrow the y-axis, and the blue arrow the z-axis. They are unit vectors for each dimension of space. Visually, we know that they are orthogonal to each other. Mathematically, if the inner product between two different unit vectors is 0, then they are orthogonal to each other. However, if I multiply each unit vector with itself, the result is non-zero. Function space is analogous to the vector space. The difference lies in the definition of the inner product. If I have two basis functions, let's say u of t and v of t, I have to multiply them first, then integrate the result from minus to positive infinity, so I can check their orthogonality. If the result equals 0, then those two functions are orthogonal to each other. In addition, if I calculate the inner product of each basis function with itself, then the result is non-zero. In vector space, if we have a set of orthogonal unit vectors, we can describe vectors in that space by using those unit vectors. In our case, there were 3. Similarly, in function space, we can describe functions in that space by using the basis functions. In Fourier series, the basis function is the sine and cosine function at each value of k. If we denote the basis function as u sub k and v sub k, with u sub k as the cosine part and v sub k as the sine part, each u sub k and v sub k is orthogonal to each other. Proving the orthogonality can be relatively easy thanks to the integration properties of even and odd function. The cosine function is even, while the sine function is odd. Because their integration is symmetric, and sine times cosine result in an odd function, the integration result is clearly 0. The coefficients a sub k and b sub k are necessary because every harmonics represented by k has its own amplitude. They are called analysis equations. They break down a function into an array of coefficients, each of which corresponds to a single frequency. If we start with the coefficients and want to construct the original function, we use the main equation. Because it is used for the synthesis process instead of analysis, it is often called the synthesis equation. Let us try this Fourier analysis on a square wave function. The fundamental frequency omega naught is basically the lowest frequency you can get from a signal. In this case, we can draw a sine wave that connects both ends of the square wave. The sine wave has a frequency of 1 over t. We shall try calculating the coefficients. Here, we got another representation of the signal. We have made a deliberate choice to represent it with coefficients and its indices k. If we want to reobtain the original signal, we just need to multiply each coefficient with a corresponding basis function. Can we synthesize the square wave function? We start from the fundamental frequency, where the index k is equal to 1. Now we add k equals 2, k equals 3, and so on. For every step of increasing the frequency, the amplitude reduces by a factor 1 over k. You might notice that there are ringings at the discontinuities. We already reached a number big enough, but still, the sine waves cannot fully approximate the square wave signal. This oscillatory behavior at the jump discontinuities is called the Gibbs phenomenon. Another function with jump discontinuities that's worth a discussion is the sawtooth wave. For this function, the process of calculation is less straightforward, but I encourage you to try it yourself. The Fourier coefficients are significantly different from that of the square wave. I suggest you use integration by parts to get the same result. As you can see, as you add more and more harmonics, the approximation can get close enough to the sawtooth wave, but not without the Gibbs phenomenon. Let us try this with another function. This time, let us use a sinusoidal function that is comprised by multiple sine functions from many frequencies. We can clearly see that the more frequency we add, the closer it is to the function we want to approximate. There is no Gibbs phenomenon because there is no jump discontinuities. Trigonometric Fourier series seems quite messy because we need sine and cosine to describe a function. But don't worry, because there is a way to make it more compact. Sine and cosine function can be expressed in terms of complex number. This is called the complex Fourier series. The actual derivation is quite lengthy, so I am not describing it here. Nevertheless, there is an intuitive way to slightly grasp what is going on. Try to draw the sine and cosine function in the complex plane. The left one corresponds to the sine function, while the right one to the cosine function. If those arrows are stacked after the other, it is possible to finally find the resultant arrow. This is represented by the right-hand side of the function. The coefficient c sub k can be real or complex depending on the function. This is definitely a more compact way of writing the Fourier series, and this form is also a favorite of many. The coefficient can be calculated in a similar way to the sine and cosine coefficient. Let us try this on our favorite toy example, the square wave, to illustrate the concept more clearly. Its complex Fourier series is c sub k. To make it more intuitive, I'm using phasor diagrams. The arrow's rotational speed represents the frequency, and the radius of each circle is related to the magnitude of the coefficients. Here, for the sake of brevity, we only consider the positive frequencies, but I think you have got the general idea on what is going on here. The Fourier series is simply all of these phasors stacked up on each other. Another meaningful toy example is the sawtooth wave. By virtue of integration by parts, its complex Fourier series can be computed analytically, though it is a bit more work. Which one is more interesting for you? The complex Fourier series of sawtooth wave or the square wave? The advantage of complex Fourier series becomes more visible when you want to visualize the amplitude spectrum and phase spectrum. The amplitude of each frequency is the magnitude of the corresponding coefficients. To see this, let us use a sinusoidal function. The magnitude spectrum plot is a plot of each coefficient's magnitude versus harmonic number, while the phase plot is phase versus harmonic number. How about the square wave and the sawtooth wave? We compute the magnitude and phase first, then make a plot. For the square wave, the magnitude decreases over the increase in frequency, but the phase remains constant. The same steps apply for the sawtooth wave. In this case, the magnitude decreases and the phase alternates between negative and positive values. Application of the Fourier series usually involves Fourier transform and frequency response curve. For a more thorough explanation, you can see the discussion of the low-pass filter in my other video. In case you want to know how to derive the Fourier transform, Check this channel for more. Don't forget to subscribe to us so you will always stay tuned to our frequency. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you and see you next time.